Thank you, Wilhelm, for keeping up the time, and for that very interesting presentation on how you use technology in establishing an effective LMIS in Belgium. Now we open the floor for questions, but it's almost 1 o'clock, so perhaps we can just have 5 to 7 minutes of questions. We can have a round or 2 rounds of presentation, depending on how long you state your question. So let us be very brief in the way we ask questions. So again, we have 2 microphones on the floor. Anyone? Okay, the gentleman from Saudi Arabia, please.
My name is Ahmed AlZahrani from Saudi Arabia. I thank all the speakers for the wonderful presentation. I have a specific question to Mr. Wilhelm. You mentioned, of course, to do this kind of function to produce insight, research, and data warehouse and storytelling is a unique position. You need some kind of specialized people to do similar activities. We are at INLO, National Labor Observatory, trying to do similar activities, and it's hard sometimes to find the right skills, the right capacity. So if you could share with us, some of your experience in the capacity building within that field, especially when you mentioned in your introduction that you have a background in history, and it's not easy to move from history to data warehouse and data scientist. So please share some experience in this. Thank you.
William, please. The question is directed to you.
Okay, this is working? Yeah. First, on recruiting staff, actually what I learned was the most important thing to find the right people is to actually be present in public debate and to be visible as labor market researchers with some authority also in the press, and because the more you are present, the more you will attract skilled people. The last vacancy we had, we managed to, for one open function, we managed to attract 5 people with a background at one of our research centers at universities who had been specifically working on labor markets, sometimes for 20 or 30 years. So just establishing your reputation enhances your chances of finding the right people as well. So I think that's the most important thing. Then there is also, of course, the connections you need to have with your universities and the people who work there, because at many times there will be maybe less financial means for the universities, and people will look for different opportunities. And what we've learned is we have a very interesting job at public employment services for people with a very, for us, a very interesting backgrounds in labor market research at our universities. But then, of course, you have to establish a reputation. You have to be present. On my personal history, I don't know if I can say much about that. I wouldn't advise the career track I did. I think I just have been very lucky to have the chance to start as a junior researcher and to be able to work myself up.
Okay. Thank you, William. Does that answer your question? You want to do the follow-up? Okay. Can we entertain other questions from other participants, please? Do you have questions for our colleagues from Korea and Japan? Otherwise, I'll ask a difficult question to both of you. Anyone? Thanks, Kia.
I have a question to Korea. So you've mentioned a lot of databases and surveys. How do you manage to bring all these information together?
As I mentioned, there are 3 or 4 sources of gathering the labor force information data sources. The first one is that the most important job is done by the Statistics Korea, and as we is a unit of central government. They survey on the labor force participation rate, and that's the main a source and guideline for labor market information. And based on this data, we set the rule on many policies based on macro or micro level. But for the panel type data, for example, with case we do the survey on 4 or 5 panel data. Basically, we analyze and make a policy recommendation to government, and they choose whether they to accept or not. So basically, panel data is to prepare for the policy recommendation, not the creating the statistics on the labor data or labor information. The survey done by the central government, the Statistics Korea, that's the main source of the basic data for the employment data. And other sources of data made by the Ministry of Labor and Employment, they gather their data on to make a policy, not to set some criterion or set some statistics. They focus on the labor conditions of the temporary workers, or some guidelines for the administrative things, not to set the statistics criteria. Thank you. Is that okay?
Thank you, Director Shin. And now, other questions for Japan? Jonah-san? Since you were a labor attaché in the Philippines for a year or so, you have been a labor attaché. I'll be kind to you, Jonah-san. My question to you is that what is the difference that you see between Japan's employment facilitation service and the other countries, specifically the Philippines?
Well, it's a very difficult question because I really, when I was in the Philippines, I really not connected to the employment service in the Philippines. But what I surprised is that number of the PESO offices in the Philippines, because in Japan it's something like 544, something like that. But in the Philippines, I guess it's more than 5,000, something like that. 1,000. 1,000. So I just wondered what service they are doing. And it's not connected through the network, right? The PESO offices are not connected by the internet. And other difference with respect to the employment service done by the PESO office is that Japanese employment practices are pretty much different from other countries. So basically, the other countries are the job-oriented job market. So the employers try to hire the people who has some sort of qualification or some sort of skills. But in Japan, it's not the case. In Japan, normally employers try to hire the younger people without any who has any experience, and just train them in-house. And instead, they will just guarantee the lifelong employment and promotion as well. So we are not really do the, for example, forecast of the necessary qualification, except for jobs like doctors or nurses or something like that. So the employment market, labor market is a little bit different. That's I wanted to say.
Thank you, John. A good answer. The only reason why we have, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why we have more pesos than Japan is because you also have more local government units. I don't even know how many that is exactly. So with that, let me just wrap up the session so we can all have our lunch. So in summary, let me just say that for information to be relevant, it has to be focused and it has to be targeted to address the specific needs of the clients that we cater to. And the accuracy of information that we collect depends on the specificity of the information and to a certain extent the technology that we use. So for LMIS to be timely, data collectors and analysts also have to use innovative systems that we can easily share to the public. So I guess that's it. And we all deserve lunch. And it's just outside. No, just outside. And we will be back at, if you can make it at 2 p.m., that would be great. But 2:10 or 2 p.m. All right. Thank you.